So, just like yesterday, we want to isolate the square root. And over here, it is already isolated. So what do we do next? We're going to square both sides. So that is going to undo that square root, and we're left with x plus 2. And this, now we're left with x squared. So far, probably no different in the steps. So let's just review the ways to solve a quadratic. There are two ways that we can solve this. I'll just put that. The first way is factoring, which some of you do not like. That's the method I prefer, okay? If you do not like factoring, and here's the deal, not everything is factorable, but the things that I show you today will be. If I don't like factoring, the other way you solve it is quadratic formula. But for both of those things, the next step is the same. And that step is that we have to get all of the terms on one side and a 0 on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that x squared there. I prefer to have a positive x squared. I'm going to move the x and the 2 to the other side. Now, there's nothing to add them to, right? There's no like terms. Sometimes there will be. So then what happens is this just becomes x squared minus x minus 2. Okay. Does anyone need me to review the setup for quadratic formula while we're here? So I'd be happy to do that. Okay. So I'm going to use factoring. So reminder about factoring. What multiplies to be negative 2 but adds up to be negative 1? What are your thoughts on that? Negative 2 and positive 1. Okay. The thing about factoring is sometimes people get to here and they forget to go all the way. Okay. The goal isn't factoring. We want to solve this. So we're going to set each of those factors equal to 0. Most of you can do that in your head. What would be the solution to this? 2. This would be negative 1. Okay. Do you remember though on these we have to go back and check our answers? So let's put the 2 in. Before we squared it, 2 plus 2 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. That works. What's negative 1 plus 2? 1. And the square root of 1 is 1. Uh-oh. That doesn't work, because if I put this here, that would have been a negative 1. So this one we are going to cancel out. We call that extraneous. Or you could just X it out if you don't want the word extraneous. Okay. Let's do one more. So I'm going to have us solve square root of 2x plus 6. Plus 4 equals x plus 3. Reminder, this is my square root, okay? And we want to isolate that square root. Isolate means it needs to be alone on that side. Is it alone? No. And I know it's tempting to try to put this with this, but you can't, because this is under the square root and this is not. I need to move this to the other side. So I'm going to do that. So I have the square root of 2x plus 6 equals x minus 1. All right, it is now, the square root is now alone on this side. We're going to square both sides. Do not make a silly pre-algebra mistake here, okay? We'll talk about that in a second. Here's the easy one. Squaring this means what happens to the square root. It's just 2x plus 6. Squaring this is not x squared minus 1. That's not what that means. This means x minus 1 times x minus 1. Okay, so we're going to have to multiply that out. All right, let's do it. X times x is x squared. I'm going to do this all in one step because we're in Algebra 2 now. Minus 1x is going to add together to make minus 2x. And negative 1 times negative 1 is plus 1. This is a quadratic. My options are factoring or quadratic formula. I need to get a 0 on this side. So I am going to subtract the 2x off of both sides. And I'm going to subtract the 6 off of both sides. And that leaves me with 0 equals x squared minus 4x minus 5. While I'm waiting for some of you to catch up, if you feel comfortable factoring this, go ahead and do that. I'll give you a second. So multiplies to be negative 5, adds up to be negative 4.
Please answer the question.
Any suggestions there? They have to multiply to be negative 5, add up to be negative 4. X minus 5, x plus 1 equals 0. So the solutions to this would be x equals 5, x equals negative 1. Okay, let's just double check. So I'm going to double check with my calculator that they each work. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them into both sides in 2 separate rows. So over here, this would be, what was it, 2 times 5, or the square root of 10 plus 6 on the side, and then plus 4, and I get 8. If I plugged 5 into the other side, I get 5 plus 3, which, okay, I know I didn't need to do that, but you're seeing what both sides equal 8. This one works. Let's try negative 1. So the square root of 2 times negative 1 plus 6 and then plus 4 gives me 6. And then negative 1 plus 3 gives me 2. Does that one work? Nope. So that one doesn't work in the original. Okay,